Welcome to Madeira, a Portuguese island off the coast of North Africa, where a crew of 7 amateur sailors with little to no ocean experience is about to embark on a 3,000-mile journey across the Atlantic Ocean to Puerto Rico. There will be no support vessels and no helicopter is capable of reaching them in the event of an emergency. Let's meet our sailors.
I've been sailing for about 5 years, seriously. I've done a little bit of sailing before, but mostly sailing seriously with Humphreys and racing.
I've been racing for the last 4 years and had an interest in sailing and cruising for the last 15 years.
I grew up in the Northeast and started sailing when I was around 6 in dinghies, and then moved on to keelboats in my teens and 20s, although it's been really almost 20 years since I've sailed a lot.
All my family are fishermen in this town, so I used to hang around boats since a long time, and I've been working for the boat yard for 10 years right now.
I've been sailing on and off since I was a kid, more intensely probably the last 7-8 years, mostly in the Great Lakes also.
I've been sailing since I was a young kid, so that's quite a number of years, probably 50 plus.
I really got started sailing in college. I went down to the sailing pavilion at MIT where I was an undergrad and started sailing, just like took a boat out for a day and then entered a class. And that was my junior year. My grades dropped precipitously soon after that.
I've been some channel crossing in Europe, but I haven't slept on a boat more than 3 days, to be honest.
A few overnights sailing, but this is way by far the longest.
I've been mostly big lake sailing, so by far crossing the Atlantic Ocean, starting in the Bay of Biscay, France. Yeah, it's a long one.
I was interested in doing a long passage because I don't know anyone who's ever done one before. And quite frankly, I was terrified.
This is actually the longest passage I've done. I was in the Navy before law school, so we did passages that were maybe a week, but this is gonna be the longest, most serious open ocean passage that I've been on so far.
Atlantic crossings are a centuries-old endeavor. This boat is unique. It was specifically built to the order of the owner with speed, but also comfort in mind. And the crew that I'm with, I really admire and appreciate and trust.
You know, after I left school, I was totally broke, so I bought a broken Hobie Cat, fixed that up, sailed that for 7 or 8 years, and then eventually was able to buy a small 28-foot sailboat. And then after the success of my business, I was able to buy a larger 50-foot sailboat, which we raced pretty aggressively for 6 or 7 years before moving on to this boat, which is an actual race boat. You know, when I started this process just under 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, and you know, the very first assumption was that the boat would end up on a freighter, on the top of a freighter, on top of a barge essentially, and then be shipped to the Great Lakes. And it was like not on my watch. You know, when it comes down to it, a sailboat's meant to be sailed, and if you're going to build a beast of a racing cruising machine, you need to sail it. And so for me, it was never a question about whether or not I would have it shipped back to the United States or I'd sail it back to the United States. And so we picked the boat up in France 3 weeks ago. There's been a lot of getting all the bugs worked out before we make this big hop across the pond. But it's a thing I've been planning for 2 years. Someone described it as such a bucket list item that you didn't even know it was on your bucket list until the possibility came up. And so for me, this is really important. And this will be the first of what I hope is many transatlantic crossings and maybe even circumnavigations I do this boat. This will be the one where I take it back to the Caribbean and then north and then eventually to the Great Lakes, and I'll keep it there for a few years. But eventually the boat will come back out of the Great Lakes and head back across to Europe and then to points beyond. As my daughter gets older and I can bring her along with some of these more intense sails, I'll do some of those with her as well.
A nearby storm has kept the crew in port for a few extra days, which gives Keith time to go up the mast and make a few repairs. The crew also take some time to enjoy one last bit of recreation on land
Each time.
before going to sea for so long.
Yeah.
We're on to Puerto Rico.
As the only woman on this crew, I trust the men around me, but I am a little nervous. You know, I think differently than they do. Different things motivate me. I need my creature comforts, you know, like being clean and privacy. There is no privacy on the boat.
Schedules on a sailboat like this are different. We tease each other about being on boat time, but timing can be really crucial for planning for adverse weather or no weather. You'd be stuck with no speed. But that's all part of, I think, the whole package of why we're doing this.
I think the two things I'm most excited about for this passage are, well, actually there's three. One is the ocean. When you get about 100 miles or so offshore, the ocean becomes this amazing blue. It's like this deep, it's hard to describe, it's almost impossible to describe, but it's this deep, deep, dark blue that's just one of the most amazing colors I've ever seen. The other is the stars. Being able to see so many stars and be able to see the star, not just that they are there, but also watching them move. Over the course of your watch, you'll see the stars move. And so it's just a connection to everybody who's been before, who's looked at the stars and watched the stars move, and all of a sudden it, you know, all the stories that you hear about, you know, the stars and planets and how they use them for navigation and everything, they all take on more life because you're actually watching the stars and the planets move. And the third thing I'm really excited about and looking forward to is the people that we're with. I really like and respect all the people we have on board, and so I'm looking forward to spending some time just kind of doing something unique and special with everybody here.
I mean, if you were doing this professionally and everyone here was all over the world all the time doing these types of trips, it's one thing. But for us, we're amateurs, and so trust is extremely important in understanding everyone's skills and limits. And that's been really fun. It's been fun to understand that and start to depend on each other.
Personally, I'm not overly anxious. I have a background in boat design and boat building, and this is a really well-designed for the conditions boat, and it's, as far as I can tell, it's really well built. So it's not a brand new company. They've been around for quite a while. They have a proven track record. There's always the weather, the vagaries of storms, line squalls, and being prepared for those. So, you know, time will tell. We'll be tested, I think, I hope, at least once.
I know this boat a lot. I know every single part of it. It's been a hard job for all the team at the yard. It took us about a year to build it. So I'm in this project since a long time. So yeah, I hope I will find my place in this boat easily, and yeah, one point is also that I'm the only French, so I hope it will be fine for you guys to get a refugee, a French refugee on your boat.
You know, it's funny, what I'm most anxious about is running out of coffee. Coffee is just really important to me and the crew, and everything else I think we've practiced for and built great trust on. And yeah, there are certainly some risks, but I think we're have positioned ourselves as strongly as we can to succeed through them. But man, if you run out of coffee, it's all over.
Ultimately, the preparation that you have to do for being 24 hours away from land is the same preparation that you would do for being 20 days away from land. You need to be a little bit more careful about morale, a little bit more thoughtful about food and nutrition and rest. But overall, you know, every what if has an answer. Every what if has a plan for how you handle that, and a backup and redundancy. And you know, there's secondary and tertiaries on the systems on the boat to keep us safe. And so I'm not anxious. I'm prepared. The crew is a really good crew. We really know how to sail well together. And so even though all of us haven't done this distance before, a crew that works well together, that has a lot of experience and knowledge, that has, I think we've taken every system on the boat apart and put it back together in the last 3 weeks to really understand how everything works. You know, so I think we're ready, and I'm not nervous. I do have a level of respect for what we're about to attempt. We're going to cross an ocean. We're going to be sailing at night. We're going to be low on sleep. We're going to be in tight quarters, and so for all of those reasons, you know, it's a thing that you approach with a level of respect and thoughtfulness, but the answer is preparedness, not anxiety. And so we're prepared. We're ready to go.
It's just before sunset on November 23rd, 2021, and the crew gets together for their final pre-departure briefing.
We're gonna head straight west. And then as this pushes down and collapses, we'll go around the top of the eye of that, and then head straight for Puerto Rico along the rum line. So we're really headed pretty much straight west to start. There's no point headed directly into the wind, into light winds that don't become the trade winds, because these are always highs and downs. So we're gonna play with this low pressure system a little bit. It might be a little bit wet, a little bumpy to start. But we're gonna go around the north end of it. So we'll keep getting satellite images to make sure that we because you can see it kind of collapses. It's not a super strong low pressure system. It collapses, and we can head straight for Puerto Rico. It should make for a pretty fast trip. This isn't the crazy winds we were seeing previously, and we'll be on the south end of this. So we might end up with some days where we have the storm sail up and triple reef main going 14 knots downwind. might end up being what happens, and so it'll be pretty windy. But I'm comfortable with it. We've already done this in these conditions before, and it was fine. So that's the plan.